Okay, today we're going to be looking at creating a simple object in Sketchup, ready and make it ready for 3D printing using Shapeways. Um, I'm going to fire up Sketchup. I'm running Sketchup 2015, which is the latest edition on this laptop. When you fire up Sketchup, it will ask you for. It will pause at this screen and prompt you. I think when you first run it, it'll prompt you for a template to use. I'm going to click on Choose Template. The one I'm using is the woodworking millimeters template, which I think was quite good because it gives you a kind of neutral grey background, and there's no extraneous bits and pieces in the screen. There's no horizon. The landscape mode's got horizons, stuff like that. It's just a space with an origin axis on it, which is quite good. So we'll just start using SketchUp in that mode. What you're presented with is blank canvas, essentially. I've enabled a couple of toolbars. This is the toolbars, yep. Sorry, this is the large tool set. And I've got a couple of extensions installed, Round Corner and Solid Inspector 2, which I'm going to use. I'll possibly not use Round Corner. I'll show you how to do what I'm going to do without using any plugins. We don't need any plugins to do this one. But anyway, the other thing I'm going to do is, just because it usually defaults, I'm going to change the edge style and take the profiles off. It just presents a cleaner image. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create a little like a trinket box, but it's not just a plain rectangular box. It'll be a little bit more decorative than that. But still fairly straightforward to put together. Use a few wee techniques. Now, I'm going to start off by drawing the base of the box, and for that I'm going to use the rectangle tool. And a couple of wee things I'm going to talk about is in SketchUp, because I'm using millimeters, I could just use millimeters, but you'll find that as you progress through using SketchUp that sometimes its accuracy tends to drift. I'm not sure if that's true of the latest versions, but certainly in earlier versions, if you're using a lot of decimal places in your measurements, it would drift, and it just becomes more tricky to keep all your vertices in the same plane because the accuracy drifts, especially when you're scaling in and out objects. So with that in mind, I'm going to use millimeters, but I'm going to multiply everything by 1,000. You're essentially using meters in that respect, 1,000 millimeters to a meter. But it's crucial to remember that when you upload to Shapeways, Shapeways systems know that you're using scales that are far too large, so it automatically scales it back down. So with that in mind, I'm going to start creating the profile of our box. So I'm going to start near the origin. I'm not going to start on it. I mean, I could start on the origin. Doesn't really matter. Start on the origin and then drag this rectangle out, roughly at this kind of. It's giving me the golden section, which is quite handy here, which is kind of what I want to do. But I'm just going to make it a value that I've got in my head, and it's going to be 50 millimeters by 75 millimeters. So I'm going to type in 50,000, comma 75,000. Enter. And you'll see that value I typed in went down here in the dimensions field, and I don't need to click in the field, you just start typing numbers, and the numbers will appear in that field. I'm going to use that often, that facility. Rather than drag and measure, we're just going to type in the values that we need. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to hold down the shift key and use the middle mouse button to pan. Scroll wheel, shift, middle mouse, pan. I'm going to scroll right out until I get the profile of the box. And you can see that is going to be 75 sorry, 75 millimeters in that dimension and 50 millimeters in that dimension. Now the base of the box I'm going to make roughly 1.5, 15 millimeters. So to do that, I'm going to choose this tool here, which is the push-pull tool. And with that face already selected, I'm going to click and drag up. And I don't have to be too precise here. I can let go and then start typing 15000. And you can see the box snaps to that dimension. Now, I did say we're not going to make just a simple box. What we're going to do is we're going to apply some nice curves to it. So the next thing to do is to draw some guidelines, because we need to put precise dimensions in for the curves. You don't have to, it's not essential, but I like to do that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the measurement tool, which is this little tape measure. And it doesn't matter which edge I start from, you see the cursor snaps to the edge as I move around here. So I'm going to start at this edge and just drag up. And again, I'm going to type in a value. It's 1 centimeter is the radius I'm going to use, but which is 10,000 units. And you'll see that that snaps there. Now, actually, that's probably all I need to do to give it a reference point, because all Sketchup needs is a reference point to work from. I'm going to go to the 2-point arc tool, click on that, and what will happen now is I'm going to start with this, where this guideline meets the edge, and you can see it tells me there's an intersection there. Now I click once and you'll see automatically this tool paints or draws it in a cyan colour. It's basically saying that it's a tangent to that edge where the red X is. If I then move on to the opposite, to the edge that's at 90 degrees, and then move up, you'll see that it snaps and goes magenta. That's basically telling me that that's tangent to that edge. I can change that. I mean, I don't have to draw a tangent edge, but I think that's what we're going to go for. I'll go for the tangent edge. So once that's ready, I'm going to click to set it. Another wee interesting fact about this tool is that when you choose to use it, I'm going to come away from it and go back to the pointer. If I choose it again, if you look down at the measurements, it changes to sides. Now this defines because the curve's not a smooth curve, is defined in a number of facets. So whichever arc I prescribe has 12 facets to it by default. I can change that value simply by typing. So if I want it smoother, I would type more, like 24. Or if I want a rougher curve, I would type another value, 6. But I'm going to leave it at 12 just now. We might have to change it later on. But as the geometry gets smaller on your model, you have to worry less about refined. But because these are quite, getting it refined, but because these are quite large curves, we just want to keep it as smooth. 12 sides is probably enough to be getting on with for Shapeways. So again, I'm going to click where it intersects, drag along, snaps at magenta, and then click again. And I've drawn 2 curves. Now I don't have any guidelines set up on the opposite side. What I can do is I can use SketchUp's inference engine, so I'm going to use that. So you see that the pencil tool snaps, or the curve tool I should say, snaps to the vertex that's created at the tangent. And if I just move along there, you see the dotted line. Red dotted line means I'm moving along the x-axis. And it'll snap where that meets the other edge, and then I can click with the tool, and it's exactly the same again. It'll snap in. Okay, now I'm clicking 3 times. First time to set the start position, second time to set the end position, and the third time to set the arc. I'm going to repeat that trick this side. So where my cursor is up here, let it hover over that for a moment, and then drag it down. You'll see that it's aligned with the x-axis until it meets that edge there. Click once, click twice, and then click again to set it. Okay, now we've not actually created any curves yet, or curved edges. We've still got these right angle edges. So I'm going to use the push pull tool here. I'm going to, as you see as I use this, it highlights the faces as I move around the object. Well, because I'm going to use it on this face here, because putting that arc in has intersected the rectangular face and created a separate entity. Well, that can be dragged down like so, and it won't go beyond. I can drag further, but it won't go beyond. If I let go of the mouse, it erases that extra face at the bottom. And I'm going to do exactly the same here, here, oh, and here. And you can see our box is starting to take shape now. I'm going to do some further refinements to it. But for the moment, I'm quite happy with this shape. So the next thing I'm going to do is carve out the interior. There's a couple of things we can do here. We're going to need to decide the thickness of the walls of the box. Now, if you choose to print it in, for example, the laser sintered nylon, it goes from very flimsy to quite sturdy in a short space of thickness. So a good thickness I've found is something like 1.8 millimeters. For this size of box, it's probably enough. You don't want to make it too thick. You could make it thicker, but it's going to cost you more at the end of the day. So 1.8 millimeters. So in order to do that, first of all, I'm going to use the eraser tool and just get rid of that guideline. Don't need that anymore. I'm going to click on this top face, and then I'm going to choose the offset tool, which is this here. And the offset tool kind of sticks to the nearest edge on the face that you just selected. I don't have to be too particular about this, but if I click once and start dragging it, I'm not dragging, I've just clicked, move the mouse in. You can see it follows the contours of the curve quite nicely until it gets a bit screwy as you move in, which is undesirable. However, we're not going to go that far, we just want 1.8 millimeters. So again, I don't have to do anything, I just have to type 1800. Remember, we're multiplying by 1000. Hit return. And we get a nice smooth wall. Now, how do I make the base 1.8 millimeters? How do I know to make the base? Well, what I'm going to do is draw a guideline, and I'm going to start the guide on the bottom edge, click once, and then pull up, and you'll see that the blue arrow indicates I'm on the Z axis when I'm moving the line up and down. And again, I just type 1800 to represent 1.8 millimeters. Okay, now with that guide in place, all I need to do is select that face, choose the push pull, and then move the face down, and it pushes that in. And then what will happen is if I drag my cursor over the guide, the face will snap to the line, and I know that that face is 1.8 millimeters above that face. Okay. Oh, use the erase tool to get rid of the guide. Okay. Now, what I'd like to do is, that's going to produce a box, yes, and it's going to have curved corners, but it'd be really cool if it was curved on the inside. So what we're going to do now is create an inside chamfer. And the easiest way to do that is just to create some guide geometry inside the inside face. And I think we're going to make the inside chamfer about 1.5 millimeter radius. So in order to do that, I'm going to choose the pencil tool, and I'm going to click it. It doesn't have to be, it can be anywhere on the line. If you move up the line, you'll see it snaps to the center of the line at some point, he said. Should snap to the center. There you go, midpoint. So we'll work from the midpoint, and again we'll move up, and again we're going to type 1500 to represent 1500. So I'm going to move to the bottom of that line, and then I'm going to drag along the, click again, and then drag along. And you see that Sketchup snaps to 1500. It knows you're going to use the 1500 as the measurement, so it snaps to that. So I don't have to type anything in, just click, and then choose pencil tool. Make sure I've got the line looks right. That's good. what I'm going to do now is draw another arc, but this time I don't want so many faces on it. I just want 6 faces on it, 6 edges, 6 facets to the arc. So before I do anything, I'm going to type a 6 in. You'll see that down at the bottom it changes to 6. Hit return, and then I can start drawing my arc. So I'm going to choose to draw the start at the top, start to finish at this vertex here, and then drag inwards, and you'll see that it immediately goes, if I drag in on this bottom edge here, it goes magenta to represent tangent, and if I click again, it creates a little face which is the shape of the arc. Now we can use this to our advantage, because what we can do is we can now select the entire face here. It's the base of the inside of the box, and by choosing that face I'm telling Sketchup that I actually want to use the edges when I go to the next tool, and the next tool is going to be the Follow Me tool. So the Follow Me tool is a bit tricky to get to grips with, but I'm essentially just telling SketchUp beforehand, before I start using the tool, that this is the face I want to work with. So after I click this, I need to choose a profile. Well, I've just created the profile, and the profile is this profile here. So if I zoom in on that and then click, it creates a nice chamfered edge, and it follows the curves around in the inside, which is really nice. Now, what I'd like to do is do the same on the outside. However, that does present us with a little problem. We can't actually see any rectangular faces to draw from. But what I can do is pull a similar trick. So if we want a continuous 1.8mm thickness on the radius, then we need to add 1.5 to 1.8 to arrive at a new radius. So that would be 3.3. So I'm going to put a 3.3mm radius on the outside of the box here. So in order to do that, we're going to use this tool again. Pencil tool, midpoint, and then draw up. I'm not drawing this, it snaps to 1500. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to add on 1.8mm to that. So I'm just going to type in the value, which is 3300, and it draws a line up there. Now the pencil tool is still attached here. Well, that's just not good to me, so I'm going to press escape to just detach that, and then start again at the bottom, and then I'm going to draw along the x-axis, the red axis, the same again, and there it has snapped to 3300 units there. Now again, got this line, escape to get rid of that. Now that's all very well and good, but how am I going to draw an arc on the inside of the box? There's a couple of ways of approaching this. You can switch view to X-ray and tackle it from there. Problem with X-ray mode is sometimes you have competing geometry in the background which the cursor will snap to, which can be annoying. But in this case, we should be clear. It's a nice clear space there with nothing there. That's just the bottom face that we're looking at. So what I could probably do with the X-ray mode enabled is repeat that exercise with the curve, and then I'm going to draw an arc again. Do I want to make it 6 or leave it 12? I'm going to leave it 12 because it's actually quite a decent arc this. I'm going to leave it at 12 sides. So you can see the size. If it's not set to 12, you can just type a 12 in, hit return. And then I'm going to draw the arc. Doesn't matter where I start from. I'll start from the bottom. I'm going to draw the arc up here. Now it knows I want to do the tangent there. Now it's created a face on the inside of the box. Yeah. Now to prove that's still on the inside, if we use view, face style, take X-ray off, you'll see that nothing's changed. We've still got our 2 guidelines on the outside there. So what I'm going to do is go back to view, face style, X-ray, possibly going to get a little tricky here because I need to select that face in order to execute the follow me, but that face is actually sitting behind on the interior of the so this presents a little problem. So how can we get around this? Well, what I'll do is I'm going to switch off this X-ray mode just for the meantime. Face style X-ray, take that off. I'm going to utilize section cuts. So if I use the section cut tool on this face here, section cut aligns itself with the face that you choose. And then I'm going to choose, I need to pick it first of all, pick it so that it's blue, and then use this move tool. And then just move the section cut up to the area just before, just ahead of where that face is. There. And you can see that interior face that I created there. And it quite nicely follows the profile of the inside curve. However, we've still to draw get rid of this right angle here. So I'm going to put this chamfer in, or the bevel if you want to call it that. And the way to do that is select the base, which is this plane. Remember, the section cut is only showing us half the model, but the entire base would be selected. And then what we're going to do is, with that selected, use the follow me tool. And with the follow me tool selected, I'm going to choose this tool here, and you'll see that that disappears, and it creates a nice smooth profile around the base of the box. And if you look at it with the section cut enabled, you can see that we've got this nice 1.8mm thickness all the way around, which is really nice. What I'm going to do now is go into the view menu, take off the section plane, take off the section cuts, so we can view the whole entity. And that's actually turned out quite nice. We can switch to, what I'd like to do is just switch to the X-ray mode again. X-ray is really good because it lets you have a quick look to see if there's any extraneous geometry inside the walls of your creation, and that's helpful because although the Shapeways systems will usually eliminate that, they can lend to problems, unforeseen problems, and leave you scratching your head sometimes. Okay, that looks good. So we're going to go back to solid view. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the lid. Now the lid's exactly the same as the base, only the lid's going to be a little shorter. So rather than have to go through all that again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to triple click 1, 2, 3 to select the entire thing. I'm going to use the move command, and I'm going to select a point. Now the move command needs a reference point. The reference point can be outside the model or it can be inside the model. For the sake of getting this done, I'm just going to choose a reference point, which will be this vertex here. As soon as I start dragging, it'll move it along, and it'll kind of stick to the x-axis, or actually it'll stick to any axis I choose. But in this case, it's going to go to the x-axis, but that's not good. So that's why would I want to do that? Why did I want to move it? Well, I don't want. I want to create a copy. So in order to create a copy, I can press the Control key once, and it's created a copy. Now, while that's still in the move, I can use my keys just to move the scene around, just to get where I want to be. And then I'm just going to click to fix that, and I've created a copy. Okay. Now the lid, I actually only want to make it 1 centimeter tall. Now if you remember, we made this lid, I can't actually remember, I'm going to use the measurement tool to figure out exactly how tall this is. So it's 1.5 centimeters. So what I'm going to do is, I want the lid to be 1 centimeter tall. So I'm going to take this top part, select that face that forms the rim at the top there, and then use the push-pull tool. And with that selected, I can then drag down. I don't have to be terribly precise, but I'll need to drag down 0.5 centimeter, which is 5,000 units, like so. And I have created a lid for the box. I mean, you could be more aggressive and make the lid a lot slimmer if you wanted to. In fact, why don't we do that? We just select that face again, and then take it down another 500, 5,000, which is 5 millimeters, remember, times 1,000. Ooh. So that's quite severe now. That lid is just simply a lid, isn't it? Not to worry, we shall work with that. Right, so what I'm going to do now is create the, if you can imagine this box, it's just going to flipped over. The lid's going to be flipped over. It's just going to slide straight off this. We need to create a little rebate on both entities here. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to create it first on this. And what I want to do is I want to make it from the outside. And I want to make it, oops, sorry, wrong tool. I need to click that face and then choose the offset tool. I'm going to offset that by 0.8 of a mil. And I'm going to do the same on this, on the lid, and I'm going to offset that by 1 millimeter. And then I'm going to take that edge, so I've got that edge selected, that face I should say, that's face on the outside. Use the push pull tool and I'm going to drag it down. I'm going to key in 1000 for 1 millimeter. Oops. And then I'm going to rotate around. I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to do the same for the corresponding inside edge. Is that one there? I'm going to raise that up 800, which is 0.8. And I'm just going to do a test fit of these components to make sure that they seat in properly. So to do that, triple click, 1, 2, 3, and then G to group. Triple click, and then G, enter. I'm not too concerned about giving the components names right now, it's not that complicated a model. Once they're components, you've got this handy feature. If you use the move tool, you can then just flip the object over, because as soon as I land the cursor on one of these crosshairs, it reverts to the rotate tool, which is really handy. So I can then rotate that round 180 degrees. And then with the move tool still selected, choose a point of reference. Well, the point of reference is going to be this vertex here, because I happen to know there's a corresponding vertex here. If I can leave it there, you'll see that we have got a completed box, which is really nice. And just to prove that it is actually working properly, we'll go to X-ray mode, choose the top, choose the lid, and you'll see the lid is sitting inside the base, and likewise the base is holding onto the lid. Now the reason for putting 0.2 of a mil between these components is really just to allow for the difference in the tolerances between outer and inner walls when you come to the 3D print. It's not a pure science. It will be largely accurate, but it's not that accurate that you can ensure that components that have a hole measuring X amount are going to fit into are going to accept other components with a dimension which is also X amount. That's not going to work. So you have to allow a little bit of tolerance there. In this case I've allowed 0.2 of a millimeter between things. So I'm going to switch off the view. Now we couldn't get this 3D printed as it stands. We need to separate the parts up. So I'm just going to use Control Z to move these around. Now the model as it stands is now ready for 3D printing. So what we're going to do is file save, and we're just going to call it my 3D printed box. Save. Okay, so now we're going to export the model to 3D format that Shapeways can understand. So I'm going to go File, Export 3D Model. I'm going to keep the name the same as the Save As name, which is my 3D printed box. And the export type will be collada file. This is kind of the default export format that SketchUp uses. It's conveniently a format that Shapeways can understand. So I just hit export. And it's very quick to do it because it's not a particularly complicated model. I'm going to go over to web browser now. I've got Shapeways already open. Now I've already got an account set up with Shapeways, so if you want to upload, you'll need to create an account. It's very straightforward. You can do that. Once you've created your account, you can go straight into the Make tab from the main menu. Now this by default is listing the models I've already got, but all we want to do is upload a model, and the upload button's here. Very straightforward. And then we're going to select the file that we just created, so select File, click into the correct folder, SketchUp Models, then choose the .dae file, not the SketchUp file, and open that. I'm going to keep the units in millimeters. Now we were using a huge scale before, almost a meter scale. It was a meter scale, but we're not going to choose meters, we're going to choose millimeters. Shapeways systems will, see that it's oversized and act accordingly, and it'll scale it down to the right dimensions. And we're just going to do upload. Now it's a relatively simple model, it'll only take a few seconds to upload. And then what we will get presented with is a 3D representation of the box. I'm using my scroll wheel on the mouse and just click and drag to drag this around here, and it's actually looking pretty good. And if we check the dimensions here, centimeters, it's 11.688. What is that? Well, that means this dimension here between this edge of the box and this edge of the box, because we put two parts on that file. But the height is 1.5 centimeters, which is this height here, and the depth is 7.5 centimeters, which is this distance here, which is exactly what was specified in SketchUp. You get other information, part count 2, the material volume, and the machine space. So what is the machine space? So the machine space is the cubic volume of space around the model, and this is just factored into the overall cost of printing. I'm just going to scroll down here and have a look at the price estimations. Shapeways will do some checks on your model in the various different materials, in fact all the materials, to check for its printability. You'll see straight away that there's some issues with the metals. It's probably because it's too big. That's not a problem, by the way, that's just that metals are limited in size. And you get a price indication. So for the white version of our box is going to come in at £15.31. So what we'll do is go into View Product, and there's the Shapeways render of the product. Now what I'm going to do is come back later and I'll show you the pre-renders in various materials. So after a short while you should expect to see some renders and the colours selected. To do that, so here we go, yellow, blue, various colours there. Yeah, in order to do that, you'd go into your Edit Product, hit the Selling tab, and all you have to do here is choose the material type. In this case I have 2 of the strong and flexible plastic and 8 of the polished strong and flexible plastic, and out of these ones I have selected the blue, purple, the colours basically that came up. And then we have I've got select this material against polished. I hadn't selected that earlier. I'll select that and then save changes. What that'll do is it'll automatically generate a render for that, but it doesn't happen immediately, it happens in the background, so it won't immediately show up here. Give it a few minutes and it should show up. So anyway, that ends the quick tutorial into designing for Shapeways using Sketchup. There's plenty of help out there on YouTube if you go and have a look, and good luck with your modelling.